Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Instagram Live conversation from Springtide Research Institute. We're so thrilled to have you joining this special conversation focused on mental health action. As you may know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are a continued partner with MTV's Mental Health Action Day, which is happening later this week. But today's conversation is all about the theme of this year's Mental Health Action Day, which is ask, acknowledge, support, keep in touch. So I have three phenomenal young people who I'm going to be bringing in right now to talk more about their own reflections related to mental health. We're going to dig into some findings from Springtide, and we'll also hear what they have to say about this emotional support tool known as A.S.K, A.S.K. So let's bring some of them in. I see their request to join. You're going to love talking with them. Hi, Rachel.
Hey.
Hi, Tara. Excited to see you both. Thank you so much for being here. I know we have one more Springtide ambassador joining us, so I'll have you introduce yourself in just a moment. But for those who may not know me, my name is Marte Aboagye. I'm the head of engagement at Springtide, and one of my favorite parts of my job is getting to hang out with these wonderful humans. I get to oversee our Springtide Ambassadors program. The shorthand of that is SAP. And Rachel and Tara are both Springtide Ambassadors. And we're also going to bring in Shruthakeerthi, who's also a Springtide Ambassador. They're all in the 2025 SAP cohort. So hello, thank you for joining us. I have everyone in the conversation who's supposed to be here. This is great. So yes, they're all 2025 Springtide Ambassadors, and what that means is they lend their own insight, perspectives, experiences to help bring Springtide's findings further to life. And so conversations like this are a key part of how we want our data to be used in practical ways, to be applied to a number of different settings. And so they'll be each reflecting on their own life experiences and stories as we unpack some Springtide findings and this tool called Ask. So thank you all for being here. If you could introduce yourself with your name, your age, the state you live in, pronouns, and then why do you care about this conversation today? I know the three of you are passionate about mental health. I've already heard that in a number of different ways from each of you, but if you could just let the audience know why this matters to you. I'll have Rachel go first, just since she was the first that connected in today.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I'm 20 years old. I live in Tennessee, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm really passionate about mental health action, just because as a college student, I feel like I've experienced firsthand the struggle of mental health and being a young adult. It's easy to feel like you're struggling internally, you're surrounded by people, and it's like no one notices. So just throughout my experiences, being like a caretaker, a peer mentor, different things like that, I've just been able to see like firsthand how important it is to have these conversations and turn awareness into action.
Yeah, to name what people aren't noticing or what people feel nervous to even maybe mention, just to make it more an open conversation. I love that, Rachel. We'll have you go next, Tara.
Right, so hi everyone. My name is Tara Mason, and I'm 24 years old, and I'm coming from New Jersey, and I use she, her pronouns. And I am so excited for this conversation because I feel like mental health awareness is really important, but also taking action on that mental health awareness is so essential because I feel like what's better than just learning all the tools and all the resources if you're not going to utilize it. So I feel like just on a general gist of things, just being able to focus on enhancing and taking action on mental health, like it's so important to bettering our overall like sort of lives, but also bettering like those around us as well, because I feel like it would just make everything so much more easier.
It's so true that there's one thing to be aware of it, and that's why it's great that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. But I love that this focus, as Springtide is a continued partner with MTV on mental health action, is like it's good to know and have knowledge, but how can we actually turn that knowledge into improving our own lives and the lives of our communities, just like you were saying, Tara. So love it. Thank you. Excited to dig in with you. And Shruthakeerthi.
Hi everyone, my name is Shruthakeerthi. I'm 18 years old and I'm from California. I it's actually, my story with mental health is always a long one, and I think it's something that everyone experiences in their life. Ups and downs of just going through things. And like both Tara and Rachel mentioned, it's it's one thing to acknowledge mental health and see how important it is, and especially with Springtide doing so many surveys, we can see that it has a real impact, especially on youth. But to take it a step further and implement those surveys in a meaningful way to help youth, especially in organizations, just school, volunteer opportunities, organizations like Springtide, is a wonderful way to reach out and say, we see you, but we also are going to do something about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we want our research to do. We don't want our research just to be like, well, that's interesting or that's depressing or upsetting, often when it comes to mental health. Like, if that's all that it is, where's the impact? And so we want leaders and mentors and educators and trusted adults to say, hey, I care about the young people in my own community, in my own school, in my own organization, whatever it might be. What can I actually do beyond just seeing the research and seeing that it's such a real need for young people today? What can I do to make my own setting, my own community environment more attuned to actually supporting young people when it comes to their mental flourishing? So let's give some people some takeaways today that they can do just that and apply that to their own context. I might be looking at some of my notes to make sure I get some data correct, but I first want us to talk about schools, because those are such key environments. Young people spend often more time in those settings than anywhere else in their lives, whether that's middle or high school, or if they go on to any sort of post-secondary education. Those are important places where you can have a real impact, and they're often places where people notice that something is wrong. So think back to your own academic environments. These could be places you're currently in, it could be places you've previously been, but I want to hear in a bit some of the recommendations you have for educators, and I include everyone in that: administrators, support staff at school. It could be someone in the counseling office at the school. It could also just be an administrative assistant that students often pass by. Like, whoever they are, it could be a custodian, like whoever is in touch with young people in these environments, you can absolutely have an impact. So we know that schools are places of connection. We know that a lot of schools are doing great things to be really mindful too, and they can always improve. So bear that in mind with everything we're saying right now. But for individuals in the schools, they often have relationships that can help or really hurt their mental health. But connection is such a key part of mental flourishing. It's been something that Springtide has seen over and over again in all of our research on mental health, that connections can really steer things in a positive or a negative way. And besides Springtide's research, I also just want to point to, places like the CDC, the US Surgeon General's office in the past has really said young people's mental health needs to be given extra attention. They've declared different public health crises even when it comes to young people and mental health. But Springtide's data specifically showed in 2021, when we surveyed 4,000 young people nationwide in a nationally representative survey on mental health, that in educational settings, schools really could have a place of impact that almost nowhere else could turn the tide as much. So we have a report, if you're wanting to dig into this more, called Mental Health and Gen Z, What Educators Need to Know. But in that report, we found that more than one in three young people told us that they feel lonely at school often or most of the time. Often or most of the time feeling lonely at school. I mean, you're surrounded by people. So in some ways, how can you feel lonely? You're in a class full of your peers. You're walking through busy hallways, or you're on a campus where you're not by yourself, and yet young people really are communicating that they feel alone, or not that they feel necessarily alone, that they feel lonely, specifically was the phrasing there. So like I said, all school staff can have an impact here. And young people are less likely to experience negative mental health outcomes if they have meaningful connections. It can actually, those meaningful connections with anyone in the school community, whether those are peers or support staff, teachers, etc., they can build a sense of belonging. Springtide has dug into belonging as a core theme in a lot of our research. And school can be a place where young people can thrive and flourish if they have those key relationships, those key connections, building that sense of belonging in an academic environment. So, two questions for that's my context. Two questions for all of you, given that. Where have you seen a school setting it help students experience a sense of belonging, experience that sense of connection? So that's like what's going well. What do you want to underscore? Maybe other schools want to copy something you've seen happen positively. And then the second question, and maybe you have an answer for both or just one, is what do you think schools can do better? What can they be more mindful about when it comes to helping students find that place of belonging and connection in their school environment? Whoever wants to go first, it's fair game.
I can go first.
Thanks.
I might have to kind of give a general overview of these two questions because I was homeschooled my whole life.
That's right.
So I've never been to school. I've only heard about experience about school, and sometimes it sounds terrifying. But what I've seen is kind of like these two different communities who are in school. One is the kind of high, like very good school districts in the sense that they have very good scoring, but at the same time have very high levels of depression and anxiety, and because it's a lot of academic stress.
Sure.
And then there's the other side where we have, just like normal school districts where yes, there's definitely mental health you could say epidemics in those kind of settings as well, but it seems that academic stress can be a really big driver to kids doing more like drugs, there's tends to be higher suicide rates, a lot of really tough topics for schools to approach and even understand, because these kids are getting into really good colleges and doing really great things. So on that note, I think what schools can do to better support their students is just help them, like just look at them and be like, you guys are human too. You're not just a vessel to try and get you to a better school or a better college. A lot of times we see teachers being like, if you do this, you're gonna get into a really good college, and grades are all that matter. But it really matters on how you live that lifestyle, how much you take care of your general well-being. So, and I think a lot of times teachers are the very first people that students interact with. Of course, we have counselors, we have like you said, administrative people, other staff, but for teachers to be the first contact and be like, if they see a student struggling, just pull them aside and be like, how are you doing? Is there something I can help to support you? Is there a better way that I can help organize these assignments to help you just get through them a little better? Because yes, they're just assignments, but this academic stress really does build up in the long term. So I think the first step is just reaching out,
Yeah.
and the second step is in a more general sense, kind of restructuring perhaps our school systems to be a little bit more compensating of students' lives outside of just academics.
Yeah.
Yes, students are going to study, they're going to get good grades, but they also need to eat and sleep and have extracurriculars, spend time with friends. And I think maybe a really big part of this like loneliness that students feel is that they never have time outside of school and outside of sports to just spend time with friends and understand that that too is a very important part of growing up.
Yeah. You touched on what Springtide really explored in addition to connections being expectations, and how expectations to the right degree can both help or hinder mental health. That those pressures that you were referencing, whether they're academic pressures or sometimes extracurricular pressures, social pressures, yeah, finding that right balance of expectations alongside connections, and how teachers can be that kind of like first line of care. I was gonna say first line of defense, but I'm gonna say first line of care,
Yeah.
like the first place that can really support a young person or notice them. And that's what is a big part of belonging, even, is just whether a young person feels noticed even or not in their school environment, where more than 1 in young 3 young people are feeling lonely in their school setting. Well, they might not be noticed. They might just feel like they're an anonymous person moving about their day instead of really being seen, looking, appreciating that someone is present and is there. So love everything you said, even with your homeschooling background. So well put. Yeah, Rachel, Tar, what would you say that you've experienced at school do well? What could they do better?
I can go. So I know there's been like some research that has shown that like students who are more like we mentioned feel like they belong or involved on their campus tend to have better emotional outcomes and will kind of like build the resilience they need to say push through high school or college.
Yeah.
So at my university we have a course called CBU 101, and it's kind of like an orientation type course.
Okay.
I was like the peer mentor and like the teacher assistant like for the course. So I kind of got to help the students in their transition to college. And one thing I learned is that college is kind of a time where students can discover their purpose, and discovering like your whole life's purpose. Like you kind of need your support system or community to get through that. So one of my like, favorite things from the course is we did a show and tell day. Every student got to bring in something that kind of helps tell their story or illustrate who they are in kind of a tangible way. And that was kind of like the icebreaker for the course. And I just saw that the students, after we did that, it was kind of like they shared things that were vulnerable, shared pieces of their identity, and got to hear about the struggles of other people's and how that like makes sense like within their own story. And so after that, I was just able to see the students open up a lot more, build connection once that like initial vulnerability was over. So I think it's really important to create experiences where people can be vulnerable with each other and feel like it's safe, and kind of realize that we're all in this together. And I feel like that's kind of how a school could kind of help students find true belonging.
Rachel, I love that. I mean, I have a preschooler, so show and tell is big in our family, home, and life. But I love that college students are getting to be vulnerable and share a real piece of themselves, and that it's facilitated with a peer mentor, that you got to be in that role to create the environment and space where someone didn't just feel noticed, but that they got to be like deeply seen and heard, and that their story was put in front of everyone, that like, hey, we're listening to you, who you are is important. And to have like an artifact even that you can dig into and speak to around it is such a cool way. I could see teachers implementing this. I could see other peer mentoring type experiences doing this. I could see after school programs like adapt this sort of show and tell way to help people feel like they're not just passing through the system, that no one knows who they are beyond a name that's getting checked off on a list, but that they're deeply seen and valued. So cool.
To add on to
Tara.
the idea, sorry,
Oh
I don't
yeah,
mean to
go for it.
interrupt.
No, yeah.
But like Rachel was mentioning, there was a small like program, you can say a retreat that I used to volunteer at some time back, and they had this kind of part of the retreat was that you get an anonymous person. They're called like your secret angel or guardian angel, something like that, where they throughout the days they gift you something every day, but it's not a big thing. It's just like you ask somebody else to do something for them, maybe take their plate, or maybe it's
Okay.
something like you notice that they really like a flower, and then you just leave a flower at their desk. Something really small. And I think especially in months like Mental Health Awareness Month, that could perhaps be something that schools implement. Like this week, you get an anonymous person and you have to give them, notice who they are as a person outside of just a classmate, and maybe just gift them something, or notice who they are outside of like your expectation of them.
I like that. I like that. I could see that happening from trusted adults. I could see that happening from peers. Very cool idea to build off of that. Tara, what are your thoughts? What have you seen go well? What could improve in a school setting when it comes to mental health?
So, like growing up, like I attended like public school and also like I guess Catholic school you would say, like some universities and like and also like high schools, like they'll consider it like public or private. But for like traditional like high school, I grew up going to like public school, but for university I went to a private university, so it's like completely different like
Oh, you had
structures.
a mix.
But yeah, so like there's like so many different ways and how they like implemented like mental health. So like growing up and going to a high school where they implemented a lot of like mental health like opportunities, a lot of mental health awareness like programs. So like I grew up going to like a public like high school, so they had so many like workshops, so many like different ways for us to learn about like mental health and also be able to like create our own sort of like clubs to go to. So we were like able to like connect with our guidance counselor so that we were able to like talk to them about like building programs. So like if we ever wanted to start our own club, we'll be able to do that. And I just feel like that was a great way for students to get more connected and discover ways not only of how we could learn better mental health like for ourselves, but also for our loved ones, and also for like let's say our communities if we ever decided to do volunteering, or even implement it inside of our like different opportunities that we have outside of school, whether that's working a job or even volunteering outside of school, or even just like shadow working, I would say. And I also feel that like what they could do better is probably host more mental health workshops, because going to a private university, like yes, they had so many ways to connect with more counselors and like different like professionals like who worked in the mental health space. It was great, but I feel like it was a bit too general. So I would just say having more specified like workshops that are catered towards like different areas of mental health, because I feel that like if it's too general, not everyone is going to, you know, take it in the same. So I feel that, for instance, if it's stuff like, oh, like just information about like, oh, what is mental health? Like people know what mental health is, but then again, some people may not. So I feel like it's not helping everyone on a like whole scale. So I feel like if it was something like, okay, like how to deal with mental health, like if you come from like a certain, like city in the world, or if you come from like maybe a different part outside of the US, or maybe if you come from like a different background, just having different ways to connect
Cultural
with multiple students,
context.
cultural context.
Yeah. Oh man, you said so much good stuff in there. But I love your point about young people being given agency. Instead of it, mental health just being viewed as something as like, well, those in charge, those in power just create something and pass it down, that young people are being empowered to be a part of the conversation and part of the solution and what's being created in school and campus environments. That's so key, that it's like goes both ways, that young people have great, as you can see in this conversation, have great insights and great ideas and want to be a part of creating a different environment in their school settings. So see where young people's energy and ideas and leadership can be honed. Not just passing the buck to them, but working in tandem and collaboratively. So much good stuff. Okay, so I want to quickly get some of your thoughts before we move to ask, talking about this tool: acknowledge, support, keep in touch. I'm going to keep breaking down the acronym there, but quickly, let's touch on one of Springtide's most recent findings about mental health, and this was specific to Gen Alpha. So I know the three of you are Gen Z, but let me just bring into the conversation what we found last year when we surveyed 13-year-olds across the country, who were, at that time, the oldest members of Gen Alpha, the next generation coming before you. There's a lot we still don't know because they're young, they're in formation. I mean, we all are to a degree, but their generation is like one of the newest ones to emerge. But Gen Alpha told us that talking openly about mental health would benefit society, so much so that 85%, it's a huge amount. Like, where do you find that kind of consensus anywhere? 85% of the 13-year-olds surveyed said that open discussions about mental health is good for society. So that clear majority from this emerging generation, they are showing us and telling us that they want to destigmatize mental health. Previous generations, it was something taboo, it got brushed under the rug, you didn't talk about it, you ignored it. But more and more so, your generation, Gen Z, and now as well, we're hearing from Gen Alpha, they're like, yeah, talk about it openly. This benefits everyone. So I'm wondering if there's a quick example you can have, and maybe you have one, maybe you don't, but a quick example of where talking openly about mental health really had a positive impact. This could be in your own life or in the life of your community. And obviously don't feel like you need to disclose more information than you'd want to about yourself or others.
I can go first if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Back when I was in high school, or well, really in like early middle school to early high school, I like just didn't know much about mental health at all or anything about psychological disorders. It was just not talked about when I was growing up. It was never brought up in school. So hearing that statistic of 13-year-olds is like very inspiring to me.
Yeah.
So in ninth grade, around the time of like COVID, the pandemic, things like that, I was really struggling with anxiety. I was spending way too much time on social media. I wasn't socializing. I was just getting really depressed. And out of that, I started having just some really like intrusive and obsessive thoughts. And that was really troubling to me. And because it wasn't talked about, I was like scared to talk to anyone. And I honestly thought like, oh, I'm the only person in the world like having thoughts, just having the assumption that no one would understand. So I remember starting to see videos of people online like sharing their journey, and I was able to kind of put a name to what I was struggling with. So struggling with like obsessive thought patterns, rumination, things like that, and knowing that, oh, that's a thing that people actually struggle with. It is not just me. I'm not crazy. So that empowered me to be able to educate myself and kind of, as we mentioned earlier, like take agency of my health, say, okay, this is a thing. I want to learn more. I want to know what kind of help I need. So out of that, I was able to kind of do my own research. And because of those open conversations, that's like why I'm able to be here today and like share my story, and why I think it's so important, why I'm so passionate about like advocacy and education, because like if I would have never found out that, oh, other people have these thoughts too, then like I honestly don't know what I would have done. So.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that personal example, Rachel. That's really powerful, of where having this open conversation made you feel like it's not just me. Yeah, and what you're doing today might be doing that for someone else, either in this live or in the replay. So thank you. Any other examples you all want to lift up? Yeah.
I can jump on
Yeah.
Rachel's example. I was going through a really tough time sometime in my high school years, and actually my sister and I were just having this conversation where with mental health and things like grief, it can really feel isolating at times, where, like you mentioned, it kind of feels like, oh, I'm the only one feeling this way, nobody's gonna understand me, or maybe what I'm thinking is kind of like really weird, maybe I shouldn't be thinking this. We just go into this kind of obsessive thought pattern of like, okay, I'm having this thought, and then like I don't really know what to do with it. Maybe like it just gets really overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
So I would say the thing that really helped me in those times was just like having conversations actually with my parents. My parents are, your typical Asian parents, but they really took the step to understand what I was going through and try to help me in any way possible. So in the same way that Rachel mentioned, I think it's really, really important to educate people in terms of that, how important mental health is, that like it's not something that's supposed to be taboo. It's as important, if not more, than physical health, because it's that building block that you take with you throughout your life. So having good mindsets, good coping patterns, good just learning how to live with yourself and others in harmony is really important, and that the first step to that is always education. Yeah.
I love that you can point to your parents as that safe place to talk openly about all of this. That's, I know not everyone has that, so that's really, really tremendous, and that other parents hopefully can feel like this isn't a like scary thing, that your young person might feel scary, but like it's not scary to the point that it's must be avoided. That your young person is wanting to have more open conversations is what 85% of 13-year-olds are telling us. Anything you want to add to that, Tara, or other examples to lift up?
Yeah. So a couple years back, like when I was just starting with like my college journey, at Rider University, like I used to do this sort of like online like mental health conversation type of thing with like other students like who were freshmen and also sophomores like at Rider University. And when I did this, like it was through like YouTube and also like through other digital platforms such as like Zoom and also like Google Meets, and we would just like express and like blurt everything out that was like in our minds. So like if we were stressed from like an exam, or if we just needed someone to talk to, or if we wanted someone to like come support us at like a, let's say if we were involved in extracurricular activities and we didn't really have that connection to like, let's say to like maybe our friends, or maybe like from like far away from home, we were able to like connect with each other. And I just wanted to basically like create that space for them, because I feel like, especially like given the university that I went to at Rider, it was a lot of international students, so they were so far from home. So that's what like really sparked like me being able to do that. And I just feel that being able to like openly talk about like all your struggles is so important, because I feel like you're able to like release it, and it's not being more of like that detriment to like your mental health. So I feel like just being able to get it all out of your system and being able to have that safe space is so like essential to becoming like a better person.
I love that. And I love that you created that for peers, especially when you were saying like students who might be extra far from home and family and in a different environment, that they had a space, that you're utilizing virtual environments to like have these check-ins and find systems of support. That's so cool to hear. I mean, all three of you had beautiful examples of where making this out in the open yielded a lot of positive results. Thank you for each of your own lives even there. I know we're going a little longer, but that's because you have so many good things. Are you all good to stay on for a bit more for this last section? Okay, awesome. Because I really do want to hear what you think about A.S.K. So if you're just hearing this acronym now, A.S.K, A.S.K is acknowledge, support, keep in touch. You might know stop, drop, and roll when it comes to a fire drill or an actual fire emergency. A.S.K is trying to become the stop, drop, and roll of mental health support or an emotional support tool. So it's something that you can just really familiarize yourself with. It's easy, hopefully, to remember, acknowledge, support, keep in touch, but it's a tool you could have in your back pocket to support the young people in your own lives. So I want to hear from you all what you think of this. Is it a tool that you could see yourself using with peers and with friends? So that's the first part. And then the second part I want to know is how could you see a mentor or a trusted adult? This could be a parent, this could be someone that you work with in an academic setting or a faith-based setting or extracurricular, anywhere that a trusted adult could utilize this, could utilize Ask for you or just other young people in their community, in their lives. So those are the two parts, using Ask with a peer and a trusted adult maybe using it with you or another young person. How could you see this being helpful?
I can go.
Whoever wants to jump in, go for it.
Yes. I think for just reaching out to your peers, it's just a good reminder to just listen, because sometimes we get into this mode of like advice or advising, like we think, okay, oh, I see you struggling, let me try and help you. But big part of just being there for somebody is just listening. So acknowledging what they're going through and supporting them through that time, just saying that I believe in you, I know this is hard, but I know you can do this, I've seen you do greater things, like you've got this. And keeping in touch, making them feel like I have a friend to reach out to, I have a friend who, you know, knows what I'm going through, who keeps in touch with me and has seen me go through all these changes in my life. And in terms of trusted adults reaching out, I think a big barrier sometimes for kids or for any youth to reach out to teachers or parents or really any other trusted adult is like you can kind of, you're scared to feel judged almost, because it can almost seem like adults have, like, you know, all everything together, like, oh, it's so long ago that they did this, like they don't need to worry about this anymore, it was so easy for them, or, you know, any of those things. And so for trusted adults to just reach out with a sense of empathy and genuine curiosity can be really the difference between feeling judged and feeling like, oh, I should be doing more, or that maybe I'm just not like their expectations of me are somewhere and I'm somewhere else, and having that difference with, okay, they see what I'm going through, they've been through this too, and I've got this, like I can do this and I can do better sometimes, you know, you just need somebody to believe in you, to see that you can do so much more, you have that potential to do so much more and just feel better.
Yes, listening, empathy, you brought out so many good points. And that the A is acknowledge. It's not advice. It's not just, oh, well, just do this, this, and this, and you'll be fine. It's deep listening. It's acknowledging, like validating how someone feels, what they're expressing, what they're sharing with you. Thank you. Thank you for all of that. Yeah, how could you see Ask being utilized with your peers or with a trusted adult towards young people?
So I would definitely say like seeing Ask with like peers and also like people that are like my age. I would definitely say it could be like a really great like sort of framework, because I feel like it's a really strong way to actually network with each other too. Because I feel like, you know, not only just doing general check-ins just to see how we're doing just because we feel that we have to, but more so because we genuinely like want to. And I feel like that's like also based on like the foundations of being like understanding, compassionate, and really just like Shruthakeerthi was saying was definitely just being non-judgmental. So I feel like just being able to have that sort of open heart and that open mind to what someone else is going through and being that listening ear to them, and also just like opening our hearts to like basically be this support system for them. Because I feel like, like support nowadays could be in so many different like realms. It could be online, it can be through text, through call, in person. So just supporting them in any way that we can. So I feel like that will actually strengthen the connection and also show them that we care about each other. And then also being able to like keep in touch. So just keep on doing like genuine like check-ins. So if we want to do it like maybe weekly check-ins or maybe like every other day, it depends on like how we all have that sort of like boundary between each other.
Sure.
And then also like being able to see this like with adults, I feel that like this is a great way for them to be able to connect with us. So like if it's like a parent or if it's like a teacher or an administrator or even just anyone who's older than us or someone who that we're working with, I feel like it's a just an amazing way to just like allow them to also learn in a way too. So because like they don't know everything, and we don't know anything like everything either. So I feel like that's just a great way to like open our hearts to each other and to be compassionate and to also align with what we can do to better like mental health. So instead of just mental health education, we're also learning how to take action on it and
Yes.
implement it into our daily lives. So I feel like it's a great way to like build upon each other and connect with each other.
So good. You both already have shared such great things. I just want to underscore the places you mentioned, Tara, of being compassionate, of being non-judgmental. I think that goes towards the peer use of this tool. It goes towards trusted adults using it with young people. And really that you're not asking someone to become an expert. You're not asking some or expecting someone to be a mental health practitioner here. You're just I guess I'm using the word phrase extra ask. You're asking someone to hopefully just meet you where you're at, to show up for you as a friend, as a support system, acknowledging, supporting, keeping in touch. Maybe there's a place to refer out towards that expert, towards that mental health practitioner, but how can you be that friend who helps get them to that place or connect to resources or just hear people out and then follow up with them. Bring us home, Rachel. We'd love to hear your thoughts on A.S.K.
Yeah. So I really enjoy like the simplicity of Ask. Like I feel like it gives structure to something that can often be overwhelming and like you just don't know what to say. I feel like I tend to be the kind of person that I just want to like jump in and fix everything for someone. But this tool kind of like can help you recognize like your limits as a peer. Obviously, like I'm not a counselor, but it kind of just helps me say, okay, this is what I can do. And like kind of as the others have mentioned, like when I'm feeling lonely or down, like I'm not looking for answers. Like I just kind of sometimes just want someone to sit with me in it. Like I'll sometimes call it like just sit in the suck with another person. And
Sit in the suck, like
yeah.
the suckiness. Yes, sit in the suck. Okay, I want to make sure I heard it right.
Yeah. And so because like when I'm feeling down, like it's easy for me to slip into the mindset that like I'm lonely, I'm in this on my own, nobody cares. But just hearing from another person can be so meaningful. And I really gravitate towards like the keep in touch part, just because it's one thing to show up for someone in a moment of crisis, but checking in even after something happens just shows real care and kind of lays the foundation for future trust and support. And so just kind of lastly, like I think like Ask is important because it really like points to the power that words and human interaction can have. Often like people just want to know that your mental health is important to them. So I think just saying something like, hey, it's important to me that you're okay, or I care about you.
Yeah.
And then check in. So, and I think that constant checking in part kind of just builds rapport with another person, and connection is so vital to well-being.
Following up, yeah, not just like, well, I checked in them once, so we're good, right? I did it, but that it is an ongoing journey. So much of mental health is an ongoing journey for each person, and so these communities of support, if these networks can feel like I got you today, and I'm gonna still be here next week, or just making sure that they're not falling through the cracks is so key. So y'all are wise. I mean, I knew that, but just the more I talk to you, I'm so encouraged by who you each are, the ways you care so much about your own communities, and the ways you really want to see mental health have a different story for your own generation as well as emerging generations, that it's not just a hopeless statistic, but that there's actually real actions that can be taken, small everyday actions that can have a huge measurable impact in someone's life. So thank you for the time you've taken today. Thank you, Rachel, Shruthakeerthi, and Tara. I so appreciate each of you, who you are in the world, and what you offered today. If you are looking for more support and resources, look for Ask. Just Google Ask, A.S.K, to read up. They even have simulations you can do to see like how you would respond to different situations. So that is acknowledge, support, keep in touch. And you can also find other research, obviously research, but also actionable insights. You can find other resources from Springtide at springtideresearch.org. Thank you all again, and looking forward to another conversation. We'll be having part 2 with 3 other Springtide ambassadors later this week. You can find those details on Springtide's Instagram page as we continue our Mental Health Action Day conversations. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.